Before you begin, make sure that you have got open JDK8 and you also have Android Studio installed, or you have got IDEA installed, IntelliJ IDEA. So I've got both of them installed. If I go ahead and take a look at IntelliJ IDEA, I've got this installed and it's going to take a while to open. Once you have IntelliJ IDEA opened, which you can also do this what I'm doing right now in Android Studio, you'll go ahead and go to Customize, and then you'll go to All Settings. Once you go to All Settings, make sure that you have Android SDK over here, and just install these SDK platforms. It's better if you install the latest ones. Also install the SDK tools, Android SDK build tools, Android SDK command line tools, Android emulator, Android SDK platform tools, Google Play APK expansion library, Google Play Instant Development Kit. Install these. Most of them you don't really need, as they come with Unity as well, but I installed them separately so I can control these and I know what's inside my computer, inside my Linux installation. So I'm using Linux Mint. I forgot to mention that. And once you have this, you can also see that it will be in Android Studio if you have that. There are various articles that will explain how you can get this inside of your system. So I'm going to create a quick 2D project, and I'll say Box Evasion. Let's just put it that's the name of the game that we're going to make. Usually when Unity starts, it's going to look like this. I've got my setup, and I say my layout. Now Unity will look like this. For me, it looks like this. You can choose your own layout. I'm going to say PC portrait, so this is going to be a portrait game for PC. Yes, it's not common, but we're going with this right now. I'm going to open up sample scene over here. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to change the name to gameplay, which is going to ask me to reload the scene. Once I've done that, I'm going to go to main camera, and what I'll do is I'll also open up the C# project like this. My IDE is JetBrains Writer. So once I'm here, I'm going to go back to Unity. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to create a new folder. Missed it. I'll create a new folder, call it Game Designer Online. Once I've done that, I'm going to create a new folder. I'll call this Scripts. Inside of this, I'll say Camera Settings. Once I've done all of that, I'll go back to Writer. Once I'm here, I'm going to open up Scripts, Camera Settings. I'll create a new mono behavior or Unity script. I'll call this Starting Resolution. I'm gonna add some code here, which is going to be just a, oh, by the way, this is an error. What you see right now in Writer is an error. Let me just go ahead and create a script inside of Unity. This happens sometimes. So I'm going to create a new C# script over here. I'm going to say Starting Resolution. I just have to do this once, then I can make all the script inside of Writer. I'll double click this. So you can see now we can actually make a namespace like that. Once we've done that, we're going to delete this, and I'm going to just go ahead and write screen.setResolution. It's going to be 720 and 1280, and I'm going to say windowed. Once that is done, I'm going to say application.target frame rate is going to be 60. So there is your camera script done. I'm going to write functions to set the game's resolution. That's done. So now I'm going to create a script for player. I'll go ahead, add a new directory, call it player scripts. Inside of this, I'm going to create a new mono behavior, call it player controls. Now I'm going to say general player script. Inside of this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some states for the player after I wrote a summary on top. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a region, call it player states. Inside of this, I'm going to create an enum. I'll call it public enum, and I'm going to say player states. Over here I'm going to say alive and dead. I'm going to create a new header, call it player state variables. Over here I'm going to create a player state variable. I'll call it public. I'm going to call it public player states. I'm going to call it player states. I'm going to set it to alive at start. This is done. I'm going to go ahead and create a region, call it Unity functions. Over here I'm going to actually create a few variables before I do this. It requires component type of rigid body 2D. Once I create that, I can start setting up the physics of the player. So in fact, I'm going to set up an update. Over here I'm going to set another region. The region will be for player physics functions. I'm going to write setup starting physics. Function that sets the starting physics of the player. Of the player, and I'm going to just go ahead and create player physics variables. I'm going to write rigid body, say private rigid body 2D this rigid body. I'm going to say I'm actually going to set up the value in awake, so I'm going to go ahead and say that this rigid body is equal to game object at get component rigid body 2D, and over here I'm going to set up the mass of the player. It's going to be m dot rigid body mass 50. Then I'm also going to set up the I think about mass is all things that we need. I'm just going to also set up the body type just in case something goes wrong, so I'll say dynamic. And yeah, that's it. We don't need to set up any friction or anything like that, so we're done here. So in the wake we've said I don't think we need a start function yet, so I'll just delete it. I'm going to set up input, so player state, player physics functions. I'm going to say input functions and input variables. Actually, we just need horizontals for this game, so I'm going to create a horizontal input float. So I'll say private float and m horizontal input. I'm going to just write private void get set horizontal input. I can actually do this as an encapsulation as well. So in fact, let's do that. Let's make it encapsulated. So I'm just going to initialize encapsulation. So that's a little weird. Like this actually was a constructor, so I guess I clicked the wrong one. So I'll say encapsulate field, and I'll say horizontal input, and that's fine. So there you go, horizontal input field header. You know, sometimes this ID really hurts me. Let's just put it that way. Alright, so I'm going to say private. So I'm going to say public float horizontal input. They get horizontal input, and over here I'll say set. Inside of here I'm going to say m.horizontal input is equal to input.getAxis input.getAxis and horizontal. There we go. So it's going to tell me to actually make it into an expression body. I can actually do this. This is going to look a little nice. And then I can go ahead and see what's renamed to horizontal input. Alright, fine, let's do that. And if you go over here, assign value to m.horizontal input. Let's see what this does. Okay, so basically what I was saying is that you need to set this to some value, but I don't really need that. I didn't need this. This is something that you can actually use this, like you can actually use this, but I don't need to use this, so I'm not going to. So what we're doing is, in fact, what I'll do is I'll just delete this and I'm going to send the values later. Consistent expression body, let's just put it like that, and I'm just going to convert to auto property. Let's see what this does. I don't like this. I don't like this at all. So anyway, I'm also going to set this to a capital H. For some reason I do not know why my IDE is saying that I should rename this to horizontal input. It shouldn't be like that. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the update function. I'm going to write a switch case, and over here I'm going to say player states, and I'm going to use my IDE to just add the switch sections. Over here I'm going to write horizontal input, and I'm going to pass in the value of input.getAxis horizontal. Horizontal input is equal to input.getAxis horizontal. Sorry, I forgot the syntax for a while. So this is going to set up the value of this, alright, and we're going to now set the value of the box. We're going to use this to move the box, so I'm going to just copy this. I won't copy it, in fact I'll just do it like that. I'm just going to basically get these switch cases done. So if it's alive, you want to move it. So player physics functions, I'm going to write private void move player, and I'm going to write a function to move player, and I'm going to write for setting the horizontal for the player. By the way, I still do not know why my IDE is saying this. I mean, it should say rename to horizontal input. I can do that, but then it says this. I've got no idea why it's saying convert to like that. I mean, the way I do it, I just like it. But anyway, the IDE is saying that for some reason, which I'm going to actually check later on. So once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and go to fixed, and I'll say move player over here. So over here I'm going to simply get this rigid body dot add force. I'm going to get the horizontal input, oh, so, apologize, this is not how you do it. So I'm going to say you have to add a force in either direction, so I'm going to say vector2 is equal vector2 in fact I'm going to actually initialize this just for optimization, movement vector2, so I'll say private vector2 movement vector. I'm going to assign the values over here, so it's going to be m.movement vector dot x is equal to horizontal input that's done, and m.horizontal.y is equal to, well, it's equal to this rigid body dot velocity dot y. Over here, I'm just going to add this, so vector. Okay, so over here I'm going to write movement vector, and then I'm going to write it will be a force actually, right? So adding force to player here. Now we're going to test it and make sure that works fine. So set up starting physics. I have to set that in the start. That is something that I have to do. Oops, yeah, and set up starting physics. And I think that's it. So let's add this to a player and see if that works. Let me go ahead and I'm going to just add a quick 2D sprite. I'm going to add a square. I'm going to move it down a bit. It's going to be minus 4.5. Minus 4.5. There you go. So let's make it up a bit over here. I'm going to call this player. Give it a tag of player. Then I'm going to go ahead and write generic player script. It should add the rigid body as well. So we're in the player state. It should work. It'll move very slowly if I'm correct. Let's just take a look. Oh, sorry, I forgot to turn off gravity. So gravity scale that down. And for some reason it didn't play. Okay, so it is moving, it's just very slow. Let's fix that. I'm going to multiply this by, let's just multiply this by 50 and let's see what's going to happen. Oh, that's the wrong area. My bad. Okay, so I'll go over here, I'll go to input, multiply this by 50. Hopefully this will work. If it doesn't, I'll try to multiply it over here. And the player is working. You can see that there is a slight amount of delay before the player stops. This is because the physics is actually being multiplied, and this is what happens when you've got physics that is acting on the body and there's no friction. So in order to fix this, there are a few fixes. First, we can try to add it over here inside I force this. I don't recommend this, mainly because it's going to also add it to the y direction. Like if you have a velocity towards the y, it's going to actually multiply that as well. So you're over here and you can see that there is no real difference. So what I can do is I can basically add some linear drag. That's going to fix things. It's also going to slow things down, but we'll handle that later. So once we've added force, we can do another thing, which is not something that I'd recommend if you're going for a realistic game. But instead of this, if you use velocity, it's going to be exact, like exactly what you have input. But I'm going to use add force just because we can learn that way. So what I can do is I can add drag to this, and once I add drag, it's going to be a little more, it's going to be difficult for this rigid body to actually move, and it's going to stop quickly as well. So you'll see if I add some drag, it's going to you'll see the value change over here. I believe it's linear drag. Yeah, linear drag and drag are the same thing. So if I move, you can see that's moving a little slowly, but it's also like stopping faster. So in order to optimize this further, what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply add more force here. So right now we need tons of force, so we're going to do that. And Alright, let's see. So yeah, now we are like much better. It's still a little slow. I'd like it to be faster. If you want realistic physics, don't use add force, use velocity instead. So this is realistic physics, but if you want, you can also add physics, which is going to be unrealistic. So I'll simply add a little bit more force. It seems a little bit more responsive, but I'll add even more. Then we figure out this linear drag thing. It's going to actually be a clamp, which I'm going to in fact I'm going to add this in this video as well, just so that you know how to clamp things. So now it's much more fluid, and we also stop after a while, so that's something good. So if you notice, the player is going to go off the screen, so we'll fix that as well. This is how we'll fix it. We'll go to move player, and over here I'm going to create another function called public while clamp player. Once I'm here, I'm going to pass the position of the rigid body. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say a function to clamp the movement of the player, and I'm also going to send in the rigid body. I should say rigid body dot position. I'll just say rigid body and player body. Once I have that, I'm going to just clamp the player, and I'm going to just send in the rigid body, which is this rigid body. And the reason why I'm doing this is just to make debugging slightly easier. I'm going to go ahead and write param name. I'm going to just name, and I'm going to write this player body. It's just for documentation. Over here I'm going to actually set the position of the rigid body, so before that I need to know exactly how much I have to move it. So I'm going to go ahead to the scene view. I'm going to go over here. It's going to be okay, so 2 seems good. So we're going to go ahead and write m dot this rigid body dot position is equal to vector 2 dot clamp. Oh, by the way, I just remembered that there is no clamp for vectors, so I'll have to create a new vector or a new limitation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create vector 2, and I'm going to say vector 2 is going to be clamp vector, and I'll say this is 0 at start. I should actually initialize this up there, so let's do that. So this is what I'm going to do. And in fact, I should rename this to m.clamp vector just for debugging. So once I have m.clamp vector over here, I'm going to say mathf.clamp. The clamp is going to be .x actually. .x is going to be mathf.clamp, and it's going to be, I don't remember what the clamp values were, so let's just take a look at .clamp what it had actually. So it has the value, which is m dot this rigid body dot position dot x, and I want it to be between actually I'm taking a note that what I'm going to do, basically it's going to be this rigid body dot position. I don't think that's correct. So what I can do is I can basically clamp this vector, like this is a clamp vector, and this is what the vector will change. So the value is going to be this, and we're going to basically move this between minus 2, and we're going to get this between 2 here. Once this is done, I don't want to press dot here. So once this is done, I'm going to basically create this clamp vector dot y, and this is going to be m dot this rigid body dot position dot y, and then I'm going to say that m dot this rigid body dot position is equal to m dot clamp vector. So right now this rigid body should work the way I want it to. Let's see, might be wrong. And there you go, this is going to be clamped here. So there's your basic clamp logic for clamping a rigid body.